Hello, I'm No One Nerd, and this is another Console.log vlog video. This one, I'm going to talk about 5 books which I found useful learning to code and learning how to be a developer. So, quite simply, I'll talk about 5 books which show you them, and then talk a bit about how each book was useful to me. So the first one is, I think, it's to do with HTML5. It's the most up-to-date version of HTML after XHTML. So HTML5, the first book I read on HTML5 when it was quite a new thing actually was a book called Introducing HTML5. And I think it's one of the very first books, if not the first book about HTML5. The author is Bruce Lawson, I believe, and it basically talks about all the new features that HTML5 had, which were brand new when HTML5 came around, like the canvas and all this sort of thing, HTML5 canvas. And it's a good primer for HTML5, and it basically talks about all the new ways that you could use HTML5. It's a good reference book for if you want to, I found, and without wanting to be too generalistic, because it was a long time ago I read it, but it helped me grasp the new things that you could do with HTML5, I guess, especially the canvas, around the canvas element. So that's that one. And then there's CSS, the Missing Manual. This is the only one of these series of books that I've read. I think there's a few Missing Manual series books, but I found CSS, the Missing Manual, a very invaluable resource, and especially as a reference. It actually helped me get my head around float-based layouts. A lot of, I seem to recall, was the Missing Manual, helped me get my head around that, about using float positioning. I didn't really understand it before. I mean, obviously that's quite an older way of doing things, but I'm just saying that the version I had, I think it's probably more up to date now, helped me understand positioning better within CSS, and it's just a very good reference manual for CSS. I think it's more up to date now with like SAS and everything else, but yeah, good reference manual. Next one is again, most of these books, it's just a very good reference manual. That's JavaScript pocket reference book. It's only like this big, it's very small, literally a pocket reference book. You can literally slip it in your pocket. I've not really read this one that much, I've just more flip through it, to be honest. But sort of does what it says on the tin. It's a very good reference manual with referencing things like array manipulation or anything you might want to do with JavaScript, basically, and sort of from a high level going into the syntax and how to structure your JavaScript. So it's quite useful. Again, without wanting to be too general, just very useful reference manual. More on the specialized side of things, the principles of object-oriented JavaScript. I read this while I was working as a systems developer for a company for a while, and it's a specialized book, it's a niche one, because it's specifically talking about using object-oriented principles in JavaScript. So yeah, how to create objects in JavaScript, classes and that sort of thing, how to basically create object-oriented, how to implement object-oriented principles into JavaScript. So I read quite a lot of this and I found it very interesting. It sort of got some of my knowledge updated on how to actually use, and it's just a decent book. It's got a really nice cover as well. It's a really lovely cover. Something about it, it's quite cool. And then finally, call this React.js book because it's got a really long title with this book here. So I've only read a few React.js books. Most of what I learned about React.js has just been by doing it, as with all these things. But I found this a good introduction to React JavaScript, and I can't say much more than that really. So obviously this is quite a personalised account. What I'll do in future videos is probably try and talk about specific books which are good for specific things, but I thought I'd get the ball rolling with one of these vlogs by just talking about 5 books that I've read which I found useful in one way or another. I think with all of these, I think you'll find with most coders, if the real learning's done in the doing, but having these books as reference manuals and instruction tutorials to tutorial exercises to do at first actually does help with the understanding. They're good to read on the bus or the train or whatever when you have to work, or the plane even. And it's good to supplement your practical learning, which is when you do coding, with this theoretical and also tutorial based books. I think I'm still a suckler for the old traditional media. I do like the books still. I'm not just about going on Code Academy and learning that way. I think books are very useful, especially if you want to learn something very niche, like the object oriented JavaScript book is a really good example of that, because it's you want to learn something very specific within a very broad subject, which JavaScript is. Anyway, I don't want to ramble for too much. I know my recommendations my reviews were quite generalistic, but it's been actually quite a while since I've read any of these books, so it's sort of hard not to veer into sort of generalistic territory with the reviews. But anyway, if you like what you saw, subscribe below. I've been All Nerd. Cheers, hope that's helpful.